Good evening and welcome to UCTV News. I'm Luke Hajdasz.
And I'm Lindsey Kane.
We begin tonight with sad news for Beverly Hills 90210 fans. Actor Luke Perry died Monday at the age of 52 after suffering a massive stroke. His publicist Arnold Robinson told CNN that Perry died surrounded by his family. No further details on his death have been released.
2 teenagers are being accused of vandalizing a soccer field in Ansonia Nature and Recreation Center in February. Police say 2 17-year-old boys have been charged with first-degree criminal mischief, causing $1,500 worth of damage. NBC Connecticut reports that the suspects were released to their parents and are due in court later this month.
A bear was found up a tree in West Hartford Tuesday morning, not far from a local school. Officials say the bear was spotted around 8 a.m. in a backyard near Norfelt Elementary. Animal Control monitored the bear most of the day and said it was asleep most of the time. The bear finally wandered off mid-afternoon. No one was injured.
Michael Bloomberg will not run for president in the 2020 election. CNBC reports that Bloomberg said he would expand environmental philanthropy and launch Beyond Carbon, a new project that he described as grassroots effort to moving America as quickly as possible away from oil and gas and toward a 100% clean energy economy. UConn students are still celebrating the record-breaking success of this year's Husky-thon. Let's take a look back at the 18-hour dance marathon with UCTV News reporter Sarah Maddox.
$1,328,402.19. Emotions were running high as Husky-thon's record-breaking fundraising total was revealed on Sunday in front of kids and families who will benefit from the event. The 18-hour-long dance marathon is the final fundraising push for the inpatients and outpatients at Connecticut Children's Medical Center. Past and present patients are able to enjoy a night of just being kids in a room full of people who care about their journey.
It's just so much fun, and it's so inspiring to see everyone raising awareness and money for people who really need it.
Family members also count down the days until Husky-thon each year.
I'm here because my sister Charlotte, when she was only a baby, was diagnosed with cancer. We keep coming back because it's so special, to be able to celebrate her being cancer-free and healthy today.
Not everybody stays all 18 hours, but the students who do find the missed night of sleep to be well worth it.
You know, there's something about staying 18 hours, the reveal in the morning, it's beautiful, everyone's together, you make so many friends throughout the whole 18 hours.
Students also find that staying the whole time draws the attention of donors.
When you say that you're dancing for 18 hours, it's a really big fundraising point, so it's the sacrifice that you're making for these kids that aren't here to dance, and it's also a really great way that people realize, if this person can stand up for 18 hours, why can't I donate $5 to their donor drive?
The strength and positivity of the children who participated in Husky-thon this year was a humbling reminder that the world is a lot bigger than us. I'm Sarah Maddox for UCTV News.
My name is IMANI. I'm a senior. I am the Public Relations and Marketing Chair.
I'm Grace. I'm a sophomore and I'm the Leadership Development Chair.
My name's Nicole. I'm a junior and I'm the chair for the Content Committee.
HOLDUP stands for Husky Outreach for Leadership Development, Understanding Pride. We are an organization that works out of the leadership office that develops student leaders with the hopes of sending them out to facilitate in high schools to develop more student leaders in high schools. Committees in HOLDUP. I'm the Public Relations and Marketing Committee. We work on developing cool videos, such as this one with UCTV, and we just try to get HOLDUP's image out there and our name out there so students around campus know what's HOLDUP and what are they doing in HOLDUP. The Retention Committee works on developing events and fun things for HOLDUP members to do so that when we get new members, they stay.
The Leadership Development Committee focuses on developing workshops and programs to implement for our own members to develop them as leaders before they go out to high schools to facilitate.
The Content Committee works on the existing workshops that we present, and we also are working to build new workshops for this year.
A Quinnipiac poll released Tuesday says 64% of registered voters think Donald Trump committed crimes before entering office. According to this poll, 89% of Democrats think he committed crimes before winning the presidency, and 65% of independents agree. The poll also says 45% think he's committed crimes while in office. This comes just 1 week after Michael Cohen testified that Trump paid him for money he used as hush money to keep adult actress Stormy Daniels quiet.
President Donald Trump is the 715th wealthiest man in the world. Forbes magazine released its annual list of the world's richest people for 2018, and Trump jumped up 51 spots from last year. According to Forbes, Trump has an estimated fortune of $3.1 billion. Now, who was number one on the list? That would be Amazon CEO Jeff Bezos for the second year in a row with a $131 billion net worth. That's up $19 billion from 2017.
A Torrington mom left her 2-month-old baby home alone 3 times in one day, including a 45-minute trip to go get something to eat. Torrington police charged 21-year-old Kiani Marie Reddy with 3 counts of risk of injury to a child. WTNH reports that Reddy arrived home when officers were at the scene, went inside, picked up the baby, and told officers she didn't do anything wrong. Reddy is due in court on March 21st. Nothing says youth power like the student-led gun control advocacy of the survivors of last year's Marjorie Stoneman Douglas High School shooting in Parkland, Florida. David Hogg is one of those survivors, and he sat down with my co-anchor, Luke Hajdasz, to talk about political rallying, challenging the NRA, and gun violence in America. Let's take a look.
David, thank you so much for being here today.
Thank you for having me.
So I wanted to start with why you're here, which is the theme Youth in Change. What does that mean to you, and how do you embody it?
The theme Youth in Change means to me young people standing up to challenge corruption. Because that's basically our job as young people, is to challenge the status quo, to fight for what's idealistic, to change what's realistic, because that's the only thing that ever has.
And how do you embody that? How have you, in your life, in the past, going forward, how do you plan to carry that mission out?
By continuing to make sure that youth have as easy as a time as possible to go out and vote, and make their voices heard, and also to make sure that young people, if they truly feel that they're not being represented, are capable and able to run for office should the time come, which is happening to many organizers across the country right now.
Now tonight you're going to be talking to a room full of college-age students in their upper teens and low 20s. Mm-hmm. How do you differ how you speak when you give presentations like this, whether it be to people our age or whether it be to 40, 50, 60-year-old congressmen and women?
I treat everybody the same, quite frankly, because I expect, one of the craziest things that I've realized throughout this experience is that oftentimes we've created a political system where politicians are expected to know a lot about everything, but as a result end up knowing very little about basically everything. So in that sense, I don't really change my tone very much when it comes to speaking to the young people or 40 or 50-year-old congressmen and women, because I realize that it's within anybody's capacity to change the world. It's within anybody's capacity to be a leader within their own community. So I don't change my tone really at all when I'm speaking to Congress or if I'm speaking to the young people. But if I do, it's just knowing that the young people aren't bought and sold, right? It's knowing that Congress has their campaigns funded by organizations that like to control our democracy instead of the American people controlling it.
How do you handle criticism or scrutiny? People say, you're an 18, 19-year-old kid. How do you, stand up to the NRA and then, it's a speck on your shoulder? You can just,
By realizing that a lot of it is heavily rooted in the centuries of ageism that there has been across this country, where constantly, especially for millennials and Gen Zers, we're told, you're too young, right? You don't know what you're talking about. Or even worse than that, it's they always say that young people are too lazy to know anything political. They're always on their phone, they're always on Twitter, they're always on Instagram, always on Facebook, Snapchat, what have you. And they don't really care about anything other than themselves, even though it's quite the opposite of that for our generation. Because I always see how interesting it is when we go out there and are speaking, and then all of a sudden it's no longer that this generation's lazy, it's that this generation doesn't know what they're talking about, or that this generation shouldn't have the right to vote and we should raise the voting age to 21, right? And the way I deal with that criticism is by realizing that if I can't stand up to that ageism that's often expressed just because of how young I am by older generations, nobody else will be able to that follows in my footsteps. Because I want people's opinions to be valued not based off of who they are or what age they are, but based off of their intelligence and their eloquence.
Let's say 10, 20, 30, 40, even 50 years from now, you're still at this. You're still, on the same path. And do you think people are going to change their perception of you over time, or are you still always going to be that 18-year-old kid?
No, I think that perception will definitely change as we become more and more successful. Just as an example, a couple of weeks ago, for the first time in my life, and for many of the people that are watching for the first time in their life, Congress voted and passed the first piece of gun violence prevention legislation in my lifetime in the House of Representatives, right? And if that's not a sign of change, I don't know what is. If the 70 laws that have changed since the shooting at my high school is not a sign of change, I don't know what is. And yeah, I'm gonna keep fighting until no one has to live with gun violence in their lives. I hope that within the next, I know that today, if Congress acted and took the proper steps and actually looked at funding gun violence research, looked at putting guns under the Consumer Protection Act and creating these new evidence-based laws at reducing gun violence, we could reduce gun violence in the United States by 90% in the next 15 years.
How do you know that?
Because we know that these laws work. We know that Massachusetts, for example, has the lowest gun death per capita in the United States because they have the strictest laws around gun violence prevention in the United States, right? We know that not coincidentally, but states with the weakest laws, like New Orleans, or Louisiana, I mean, have cities like New Orleans, which have the highest per capita death rate of any city in the country by gun violence, right? And we know that these laws work. So if Congress enacted laws today, like, for example, getting licensing for guns and needing a license to even go out and buy a gun, making sure that individuals have to go through a month-long waiting period before they can buy a gun to help reduce the majority of gun deaths, which are suicide, by creating extremist protection orders at a federal level that disarm people like domestic abusers and people that are at risk themselves and others. I know that we could do this because in that time period, even if we didn't know what the solutions are now, if we started funding the research today, we can take action tomorrow.
You've always been about the now, taking action now. Now in your life, you were just recently accepted into Harvard. How are you going to balance Harvard University and the rigor that is, as well as March for Our Lives and all the other work that you do?
We'll see. I'm not sure. I would be lying if I said I knew how. But I'm sure that there's thousands of other young people across the country that are also working just as hard as I am within their own communities, taking action, that are running for city council, that are organizing with their March for Our Lives chapter. And I know that even if I need to take somewhat of a break from this and continue doing this work, but not as much, there's going to be other people that have and will continue to step up to the plate.
Like your classmates?
Yes, like my classmates, like my sister, who had lost 4 friends when she was 14 years old at school that day.
After Harvard, any plan?
I'm not sure because I think about the future and I don't know what it holds, right? Because I know if Congress really started acting today and didn't just do background checks, but went like a couple steps further where it's like actually funding gun violence research, because right now it's still technically against the law to fund gun violence research at the CDC. If we took that action, maybe this issue wouldn't be around by the time I was able to run for office, for example. And maybe, I'm not sure how effective I would be, how effective an individual can be as an activist within politics and balancing whether or not they're going to get corrupted by the same system that has corrupted thousands of others before them.
Did you ever consider running for office at such a young age, even at a local level down in Florida?
I have, but the thing is, I'm going to school in Boston, so I can't really.
But had you not?
Had I not, I definitely would have.
At the local level?
Yeah.
How,
definitely.
A local level obviously can't achieve what your overall goals are. What impact can you make on the local level as compared to state and then federal, of course?
Well, I think by creating, for example, in Florida, there's a coalition of cities that were creating safe storage laws because we know that in over 50% of school shootings, guns come from the parents' house. and it's the parent's gun that's not properly kept, stored, and locked, and there's no laws around that at a federal level right now. So enacting that at a municipal level is something that many cities are doing, and that I would encourage my city to do too, had I been mayor, for example, of it.
What's your biggest message to UConn students and college-age students?
That this issue is not about gun control, it's about stopping kids from dying, right? It's about stopping gun violence at every level, inside and outside of schools, in every zip code, from the south and west side of Chicago, where I have many friends that work around gun violence prevention, to Parkland, Florida as well. Because whether it's 17 people that die in one instance, or if it's 17 individual cases over a weekend, we have to see those things as the same thing. And on top of that, I hope we realize that even if you don't agree with anything that I say around new gun laws, and you truly believe that we just need to fund more mental health, please go out there and advocate for that, because we really do. We do need to fund mental health more, especially in our schools and in our communities. But what's getting people killed is continuing to point the finger and offer solutions, but not offering our actions on those issues, right? When Democrats go out there and say that we need new gun laws, but don't actually take action on those laws, it's getting people killed. When Republicans go out there and say we need to make our schools safer and fund mental health, but then don't do that, it's getting people killed from both sides, right? So we need to make sure both sides are held accountable. We need to make sure law enforcement is doing their job and enforcing the laws that we're creating and the laws that are already in place. And on top of that, being able to fund the research that needs to be done in the first place.
Appreciate it.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Award-winning HBO show Game of Thrones has released the trailer for its 8th and final season. According to CNN, the trailer has been viewed over 11 million times as of Tuesday afternoon. The final season was shot in roughly 11 weeks and is comprised of mostly night shoots.
Explosives were found at London airports and a train station. Local authorities say no one was hurt, but service was disrupted on the rails. No flights were affected. The police have not ruled out the possibility of other packages and are telling the public that if they see something, say something.
Coming up next, the latest on UConn sports with Ryan Kim, and then a look at upcoming changes in student fees from the university's new rec center with reporter Isabel Wang. Stick around.
The UConn Huskies women's basketball team traveled down to Florida for the regular season finale in hopes to spoil USF senior night. In what was the preseason #1 versus #2, all parties came to play, despite key injuries on both sides. The Huskies, in the end, had to fight for it. USF's been without their star Kitty Alaksa since Game 4 after a torn ACL. UConn was playing its first game of the season without their star shooter, Katie Lou Samuelson, out with the injury she suffered on Saturday. After the honorary first points by senior Lauren Ferreira, out since January with an unidentified illness, it was the running of the Bulls. USF got out to as much as a 9-point lead, stifling UConn in the process. The Huskies were all sorts of confused in the first 20 minutes, unable to get much offensive consistency going. USF shot barely better, 38% to 32%, but they exploited UConn defensively. The Bulls locked down on Nafisa Collier, keeping her off the boards, limiting UConn's leading scorer and rebounder to just 8 points and 3 rebounds. USF kept UConn's attempts outside the paint. The Huskies would finish with their lowest scoring half of the season, trailing 29 to 25. Coach GENO AURIEMMA saw the pressure without Lou, knowing the inside game would be cut short.
We knew going in without Lou that it was going to be hard to get anything done in the lane. They're not going to stretch out on anybody other than Lou. So we knew the lane was going to be packed, and you're going to have to make a bunch of threes, and we didn't.
UConn came out for the second half with fire, pulling out all the stops. USF stuck with UConn defensively, but were unable to convert on offense. UConn pressured the Bulls, at one point forcing 7 turnovers in a span of just a few minutes. In the final 10, it was Kristen Williams Her strong quarter put UConn out for good. UConn stepped up on offense, shooting 43% to USF's paltry 21 in the half. But it's the outcome that counts. UConn held USF scoreless for the final 6.5 minutes.
We know that they don't like pressure, and that was our game plan from the beginning, and we didn't execute it. So we came out really wanting to lay that on heavy.
Huskies and Bulls battled in a low-scoring affair. Ultimately, it was UConn that was able to pull out a 57-47 victory. The Huskies finished the regular season 28-2 as all gears shift to the AAC tournament at the Mohegan Sun Arena. The Huskies will enter the tournament with the number 1 seed, facing number 8 or 9 pending the outcome of that game on Friday night. From the Yangling Center, for UConn basketball for the last time, I'm Ryan Kim with UCTV Sports.
The general university fee at the University of Connecticut is proposed to increase for the first time in 5 years. Today, students and faculties are invited to attend the open forum on fee proposals, taking advantages of it to ask questions and to share their concerns. UConn is holding the Town Hall Style Forum every semester. This year, students and faculties have scored Jordan, the Executive Vice President for Administration, to outline fee bill increases and inform them how the school organizes its finances.
The university is proposing an increase to the general university fee of $23 per semester for next year. That's $46 for the year. That will pay for increased costs for salaries and fringe benefits for employees that provide student services, and for new Husky ID cards. We're moving to a smart chip technology that'll provide the latest, most secure technology for your ID cards.
Jordan said the Gov funds most student activities and student support functions at the school. He reiterates that this fee increases has nothing to do with the state funding cuts. It's the decision made by the fee committee, which is comprised of 5 students and 5 administrative positions.
The general university fee is totally self-supporting. Those departments that are funded by it, and that includes rec services, student government, the student union, the career center.
Students are saying that this fee adjustment is not too much to complain about. They believe a $46 increase is not a significant price change for a year.
They laid out some pretty good reasons. Inflation is a pretty good reason. Rental increase for the housing increasing price in Stanford is a pretty good reason. So I do think that they're trying their best to not overly hike prices, but at the same time, you have to understand that inflation happens and things start to cost more, and the money has to come from somewhere.
Fall 2019 also marks the first semester in which the new Student Recreation Center fee goes into effect. The fee is set at $250 per semester for undergraduate students. Students are hoping that it would be better to build rec center that closer on budget with donation and grants that the school could be given.
They didn't put into complete consideration, the diversity and the range of socioeconomic statuses of their students on campus.
Despite the proposed fee changes, the students and faculties at UConn are still taking every opportunity on campus to take action and to make sure that their voices can be heard. Reporting for UConn News, I'm Isabel Wang.
A New York man has been sentenced to 1 year in prison after police say his dog was found hanging from a tree. Robert Overton Jr. pled guilty to aggravated animal cruelty and will be placed on the Western New York Animal Abuser Registry. Overton says he hanged the family pit bull after it acted aggressively towards his daughter.
Well, talk about divine intervention. The Coal City Fire Department in Grandview, West Virginia, responded to a fire at Freedom Ministries Church over the weekend. Firefighters say that when they got there, the blaze was so hot, they actually had to take steps back. The fire department posted on their Facebook page saying everything should have been destroyed to ashes. However, all Bibles and crosses were left untouched, not affected by the fire at all. All firefighters also got out safe. The fire department says though the odds were against us, God was not.
Last week, we reported on an unclaimed Mega Millions jackpot from South Carolina. The winner has now come forward. The winner, who remains anonymous, will take the one-time cash payment of $878 million. South Carolina is one of only 8 states that allows lottery winners to remain anonymous.
Uber has released its list of most left-behind items of 2018. The popular ride-sharing service says cell phones or cameras top the list with 1,251 reported instances. Other items on the list were wallets, keys, clothing, and e-cigarettes. Uber also released some of the strangest forgotten items, including a catboard scratcher, a police belt, dentures, a social security card, and a pager.
That's all we have for you tonight here at UCTV News.
Be sure to check us out on social media at UCTV Channel 14, as well as our YouTube page. We'll see you right here next week for another edition of UCTV News. Good night.